Hello everybody, this is Kay. Thank you for joining me today here on my channel, Gigi's Paper Treasures. I have a fun little project I'm going to share with you today. I dove into my envelope stash again. I tend to save all, well not all, but the majority of like our junk mail window envelopes. And I also have, plenty of just regular envelopes that I've found at thrift stores. I can't seem to pass them up and leave them there. So I literally have 2 boxes full of envelopes, including, the junk mail envelopes with the windows and craft paper envelopes and regular envelopes that I coffee dye and turn into things. But, 2 boxes is getting a little overwhelming, so I decided it was time to dive into this and do something with some of these. So this is the project that I have today, and it's kind of making a little page to put in a journal. If that's what it can be used for that. Some of these I just made into pockets. I kind of cut them shorter and made them into top loading pockets. This one has the window here. Let me get so it's got the window part here, and this one actually I used the other parts of the envelope to make, and some scrapbook paper to make pockets for the back. So this is something that can be either added to a journal page with a hinge or tucked in another pocket. So I made a couple of those, that one and this one. And I want to apologize if you can hear my Roomba vacuum cleaner in the background. I got it going early this morning. I do have the door closed, but still can come out pretty loud on camera. Here's one that's just simple. These 2 are just kind of simple, and they're opened up on the side for large tags or journaling cards. They have different windows, obviously, so you can create something that is designed specifically to show through the windows. Sometimes I like to put like a word on these narrow ones, kind of going in a vertical direction here. I think that's neat. This one is the same with 2 large side open pockets, but I also added some front loading pockets here. These 2 are top loading. So I've closed off all the sides, and you can see I've done sewing on these too, which is optional. You don't have to sew if you don't have a sewing machine or don't like to sew. What I did on this one and a couple of other ones though is I took some of my strips of paper that are like offcuts from other projects, and I stamped on them, and I used those things to cover up like writing that's on the envelope that you don't want to show, like things like this. I need to do something about this too, this little barcode thing here. And I may end up doing that, stamping on a strip of my scrap paper and covering that up. So I did that on this one. This is another top loading one like that. And I just did some covering with scrapbook paper. On these 2, I kind of sewed through. After I created the wide open pocket, I decided, well, I'll just put another stitch through here, and then what we have is 2 side loading pockets. So you can put something in there. You can put something also, if I can get it open, into this little pocket. This item might be too wide, but you can put another little tag or journaling card. So you have 4 different pockets in this one for 4 different items to tuck into. I did that on this one, and this is another one where I stamped. And you can also put like scrapbook paper or stamped on paper underneath the window so that you can cover up something. Like if you don't like the pattern of whatever is on the back inside of the envelope, you can cover it up. So I did those. These 2 are pockets, but they also are kind of a double pocket deal. So you've got your wide kind of front pocket And then I just added another, actually what I did was I covered the inside up because I didn't like the pattern that was on the envelope, and I just wrapped it around to the back and made another little side tuck back here on these two. So that's the ones I've done so far. To make these, I used up most of my junk mail envelopes that I had already coffee dyed. I do like to coffee dye them first. The white is just too much for me. But I do have a couple left here that are coffee dyed that I haven't made yet. And here's a couple more. I'm actually in the process, as I'm making this video, of doing a little more coffee dyeing. So I'm going to take some of my envelopes and coffee dye some more so I can make some more of these items. So I wanted to show you that to do this project, it's really helpful if your envelopes are exactly the same, because what I do is I open them up like so, and I put them together like so to make that kind of double folded pocket page. So, and then sometimes I cut them down. I would cut this down probably if I were going to put it in like a standard size journal, because this is a little bit taller than a journal would be. For instance, this envelope is just under 9.5. So if I'm making a journal for 8.5 by 11 papers, I would want to cut this down probably to 8.5. So I'd probably have to cut some off down at the bottom here. But you don't have to just use these large, long envelopes. You can use CD envelopes. I haven't done one of these with the CD envelopes yet, so I'm going to try that. Here's some more. These are the envelopes that our bank statements come in, and they have this little notch. It's not like a perfect rectangle, which, I mean, is okay, but you can always cover that up if you wanted to make it, you know, a perfect square and not have that little tab part showing there. Oops, those actually are not exactly alike. They're the same. Oh, here we go. These two are alike. And those are the two I just put together. Hello. Here's two that are smaller, and they have just a little narrow window in them, which I think that's neat to also to put a little word or a skinny little, you know, stamp piece. Or actually the background of that is not too bad. Could just leave it like that. This one has some kind of a mark in it, but, and then a couple more. These have two windows, which I think is a little difficult to work with this kind of envelope, because then, you know, if you're wanting something to show through the windows, you have to, it's going to take a little bit more work getting two things lined up. So I would probably cover up one of these windows, and I may do that. But all of these, before I do anything with them, I want to get them coffee dyed. If you don't save your junk mail envelopes, you can still make windows and do this project even with plain envelopes. Now these were two plain envelopes to begin with that I opened them up, and I took them to my die cutting machine, my Sizzix die cutting machine with a kind of a square die. Here it is right here. This is the one that I used. And I cut my windows, and then you can take some plastic, acetate, vellum, whatever, and adhere it to the inside, or you can just leave it open too, but I'm probably going to add some plastic or some vellum to the inside. So in essence, I've made my own window envelopes, and I think I want to do the same thing with these craft envelopes. These are really nice, heavy, sturdy envelopes, and I picked these up at a thrift store, a big stack of them, and I kind of want to do that, to do this where I kind of make my own windows with these. So I'm going to show you real quick how I do that. And I'm just going to, I'm going to go ahead and close up these flaps, because I like to leave those on here. So I'm just going to put a little glue all along that edge and close these up. I'm going to close them and then I'm going to open them. And along that one. Okay. And now you can use a ruler and a craft knife, or you can use just scissors, or you can use a paper trimmer, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to kind of put these together. Now I want to open them up on the same side, so I'm going to put them together, tuck them into my trimmer, and I'm going to trim off just a sliver on this edge and the top and the bottom. Little issue with my trimmer, and it kind of chewed up a corner here, so I'm just going to take my scissors and clean that up. I think maybe it was too thick for my trimmer or something. Anyway, so now this is what I have. These open up like this. So what I want to do is I want to open up a little window on this side of this one and this side of this one, because this is how I'm going to end up putting them together. And I'm going to add my dye. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I use this washi tape. This is some of my not so favorite washi tape, just to kind of hold this in place. And now I'm going to take this to my die cutting machine and cut out my little windows, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I cut those windows out. I'm just going to gently remove my tape so it doesn't peel away any of my paper. And I also keep these because these make nice little like label things you can stamp on or add them to a cluster. So I keep all of my little punch outs. Here's my other two that I kept from the other two envelopes I punched out. So now I have my two windows, and this is going to end up being like this. So I'm going to go grab some plastic or some vellum to put behind here and close up and make those look like actual windows. I have some plastic here that I harvested from an old photo album, and I'm just going to use this to make my windows. So I'm just going to cut out, I'm going to go ahead and do all 4 of these. So I'm just going to cut out a couple of these squares and cut them down to size, but you want to make them a little bit larger than the window. So for example, I'm gonna cut this down, but I'm gonna leave a border around it. Let me see. Let me just fold it so I know where to make my cut, so I can see the crease. So I'm just gonna cut that off. And I'm gonna cut down 4 pieces of this for all 4 of these little window envelopes. Alright, I've got my 4 windows, and instead of gluing these down, because you know glue and plastic don't always get along together too well, I'm going to use this paper tape, and I'm going to tape it on the inside. I'm not worried about it's not going to show. And this paper tape, I get it from the Dollar Tree, $1.25 tree. It's very thin, it's very sticky, and it works great for this type of thing. And since these are going to be side loading pockets, I especially want to make sure the whole side is covered over here so that when I go to tuck something in to the pocket, it's not going to get caught on that plastic. So I especially want that side to be completely covered end to end for that reason. And you can see here that this is a little bit wide. I'm going to trim off a little bit on this side just to make room for my tape to go on there. But I'm going to basically tape all 4 sides. I just don't have to be as precise with these side and back ones. It's the one where the opening is going to be that's most important. So I'm just going to take a few little pieces, actually, and secure these other corners and sides. Oop. Of course, you want to make sure you don't let anything get kind of buckled up. Oh, that's stuck down already. Sometimes I get in a hurry when I'm making my videos and I get a little careless. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's laying flat and stick that down. In this corner, and sometimes if you have only like a narrow space, this tape might be too wide. You can tear it just to make it a little bit narrower. Anyway, I wanted to share with you about this tape that I get from Dollar Tree. I just love it. Okay, I'm going to cover all 4, see that? Isn't that cool? Of these windows in the same manner. All my windows are covered, and while I was doing that, I decided I wanted to go ahead and do a couple of top-loading ones as well. So I went and I grabbed a couple more craft envelopes. These are a little bit smaller than the other ones, and I used a notch punch this is actually a notch and a corner punch. It came with a scoreboard that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I punched notches. So if you're making your own windows like I did with the die cuts, you still have to open it up on 3 sides to be able to get your die in there. Otherwise, you'd be cutting through both front and back. So I had to go ahead and open those up. I punched my notches. I used a little bit of a different die for the little window space, but all of these have the plastic on the inside now and are ready for the next step, which is, if you want to cover the background. Like if you don't like what you're seeing in the background, and I don't particularly like that because it's just plain and you can see the envelope parts. Not that that's that big of a deal, but I do want to put something in the background of those, and I'm not sure, maybe these as well. So I think what I want to do is grab some book page and cover the back with some book page. So I've got some Edith Holden book page. These are the last few pages I have left of an Edith Holden book I've been working my way through, and a lot of it is texty type pages, so I think I will use some of that. And then I've got some Reader's Digest pages, text here. So maybe I'll just put some of this. I think it would look good either way. But okay, so I'm going to use Edith Holden on this one. I'm going to go ahead and put these together, and just so I make sure I cover the right sides. And I'm just going to stick that in there and kind of tear it down. To just cover that window. And I'm actually going to need 2 pieces because I'm going to do it the same thing on the front and the back. So let me see if I can make this enough for both of these windows. So here's something to kind of pay attention to. I made a little bit of a mistake on my 2 craft paper ones in that I didn't pay attention to which side I put my notches in. I really like to have, like on this one, I like to have a window on the front, and then the second window is on the inside like that. But the way I punched my windows, like on this one, it's going to be okay because I'm just going to have them down low instead of up high. But if I left them that way, they'd be like on the back side. Does that make any sense? This one's going to be okay because I'm just going to have the windows be down here, and I can decorate more up here. I don't know if that makes sense, but I like to have a window on the front part. And on this one, I don't think I can fix it because I punched my notches, you know, so that's an obvious, that's the front, that's the pocket. So these are going to have to be on the inside of, and then the back side. I don't know if I'm making sense, but this is going to be the front of it, so I'm not going to have a window there. So that's just something to pay attention to if you try this project. But, so I've got my book pages all ready to paste down on the inside here, and I'm just going to kind of try and line them up kind of straight. Certainly doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to grab my art glitter glue, and I'm going to glue them to the back side because we want to remember we're slipping something into this window. So I'm just going to put glue all over the back of this piece, and then, you know, just kind of put it in there, making sure it's showing through the window and isn't super crooked. So let me get this kind of straight here and hold it down. This is where, you know, an extra hand would come in handy. But I'm just going to kind of place it in there and try and get it nice and straight. And then I'm also going to take another piece of that paper tape and put it across the top here, making sure it doesn't show through the window, just to, you know, just so in case this ever gets a little bit loose, stuff that you're putting in the pocket doesn't get caught on it. So I'm just going to put one on the top since I glued it. And then also pay attention, you don't want that tape to show, so you don't want it to show up here, and you don't want it to show in the window either. So I'm just going to burnish that down real good. Let me get my bone folder. Okay. So that's that one, and now I'm going to do this back one same way. This is still some of that Edith Holden book page. It's a little bit of a different text. You can see it's smaller, but that's okay. And I'm going to just try and get this nice and straight. Put glue all over the back of this first. I forgot to do what I just told you not to do, and you can see my tape through the window. And the thing about, I tried to peel it off, but it didn't really come off, so it would tore a little bit of the book page. So what I'm gonna do, rather than trying to rip this whole thing up, is just grab another piece of my Edith Holden book page over here and just kind of go over the top of it. I've got this page here. One thing about paper crafting is, you know, you can always fix things. If you mess something up, you can always fix it. I've rarely had a project where if I messed it up, I had to just throw it out, you know. I don't know if I've ever actually had that happen, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just gonna fix this by putting a whole new piece over the top, and this time hopefully I won't make the same mistake. I'm going to tear a little bit of this off. I don't think I really need it. Alright, put my glue. Finally, I did it right. Success on that one. So I'm going to go ahead now and paste down my other background book pages, and then I'll come back in a second and show you what these look like. Got my book page all secured down for all of these. And now another thing that you want to do before you glue these shut or take them to your sewing machine, whichever method you're going to use, is any inking that you might want to do. And really the only inking that I want to do before I sew is on these notches. So I'm just going to take my vintage photo and ink that notch, because it's just so much easier to do this before you sew the whole thing closed. I'm going to go ahead and ink that back there as well, and then this one as well. Now, I didn't put notches on the sides of these. You certainly could do it. I'm not going to now because I've already, you know, I didn't allow any space with my tape and stuff. That would show. If I were to put a notch in here, that would show in the background. So I guess I could always cover that up as well with some book page, but I'm just gonna leave those as they are for this particular project and for this video. But I wanted to get those edges inked up really good so that, you know, they were pretty obvious pocket spots. So, but before I go to my sewing machine, I am gonna do another envelope because these were all regular envelopes, and I wanted to show you how you can do the same thing with the junk mail envelopes. Now, I only have these two that are coffee dyed, so I'm going to use them. This one's kind of falling apart on me. So I'm going to do a little repair work on this. Just want to, because I want these flaps intact. So I'm just going to go ahead, it's just barely attached down here at this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue all along this edge, and then along the edge of the flap up here, and put this back in place on the envelope. So there we go. Okay, not perfect, but you know, It is junk journaling. We don't have to strive for perfection, right? And then another thing I'm going to do, well, this one, it's not the exact same envelope, but it is the same size and it has the same window. It came from two different places, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get, actually, I think I'll use my ruler and my little cutting board and trim this down a little, because this is probably one that I'll be using in like a 9x6 kind of standard size journal, which, you know, accommodates 8.5 by 11 papers. So I'm going to cut this down. This is about 9 7/8 these are, so I'm going to cut them down to, I want to make them a little shorter, so I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches off to make them a little bit shorter. And I'm just going to cut that off of this bottom edge so I still have the full window and I don't cut into my window. And I'm going to line this up. I have this little portable cutting board here. This thing is pretty nice to work with. Okay, I'm going to line it up here and line my ruler up at, you know, cutting off about 1.5 inches down here. So I'm going to line that up, line all the things up, and then, sorry for the reaching, grab my craft knife and just trim that down on the bottom. Okay, so I have that, and now I have to open up this top spot. So, you know, while I have this out, I might as well just use my craft knife and my ruler, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball this and just cut off a sliver. I think my craft knife blade is getting dull. Might be time to snap it off to the next one. This is one of those ones where if it gets dull, you just kind of take it to the edge like that. I don't know if that's focusing. There we go. And you take like a needle nose plier and you snap that off, and then you have a new sharp blade. I like that little craft knife. Okay, so this is what we have now. And this is going to open like this. And this one is going to be like this. Now this is one of those ones where I will cover stuff up. This one has a lot of writing on it. The background on this one right here doesn't look too bad. Not crazy about this background, so I think I'll grab a piece of my book page. See, I've still got a little bit of Edith Holden here. And I'm going to put that in the background. Let me tear this off. So I have just the text. And I save all these little scraps too for, you know, other projects. You know, we have a hard time throwing stuff away, don't we? So I kind of want to, let me see where I want to line this up. I think that'll be good. So I'm just going to open this up and do a little tearing with my tear ruler just to tear this down to size. Now this, I think I'm going to have to put almost to the edge because I don't have a whole lot of space at the top of the envelope. And then I'm going to turn this around. And you know what I could do, rather than tearing this off, and I think I will, is I'm going to fold it. I'm going to fold it over the edge, and what that'll do also will add a little bit of reinforcement to the edge of the envelope over here. So I'm going to do that. See how that looks? Looks good. Okay. And that also kind of gives a clean edge so you don't have to worry about anything you stick in that pocket catching. So I'm gonna just get my glue, and oh, look what I'm covering up. That's the hard thing about using some book page, is you have to sacrifice what's on the other side. And I just realized that I'm sacrificing this little image here of the flower called Fair Maids of February. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, what am I going to do about that, right? All right, so I'm going to glue that down. Make sure it's still good. And I'm just going to flip it over and glue down this little flap. Since I have my book page here, I think I'm just going to go ahead and use it to cover up all this unwanted printing and stamping from the post office. I'm going to use this book page, and I think I'm going to make one of those little short little pockets here for the front of this. So I'm just going to take this piece of book page, and actually I'm going to get it, I'm going to tear it so it's even down here on the bottom. And I'm going to do a little bit of a torn top. I'm going to make a little pocket here. I'm going to fold this over, and it's going to be kind of a roomy pocket because it's going to have like a little gusset here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to fold it over on this edge too. Let me just fold it this way first so I know where to fold it, and then fold it back. And then I'm going to do a little gusset at the bottom as well. Grab my scissors and cut out this little corner here at the bottom. And I'm actually going to trim this down too. I don't need that wide of a gusset, so I'm going to take my ruler and make that a little bit shorter. Okay, so this is what we have. So I'll be covering up that unwanted printing, but I'll also be adding a functional item to this project as well in the pocket. Let me tear away these corners here so they don't poke up and show. Okay, so that's going to go like that, and this is going to be the front of this piece. But before I glue that down, I want to get a piece of the texty page and cover and just kind of put a strip here. Let me see what I can find over here. So I've got this, and I think I will use that. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead. First of all, sorry, I'm figuring this out as I go along, if that isn't obvious. I'm going to ink that edge. I'm going to glue it down on there like that. And then I'm going to tear it down even with the edge of the envelope. So I'm just going to put glue all along this torn edge. If you've been watching my channel for long, first of all, thank you for watching again, but also you know that a lot of my projects are kind of I figure things out as I go along. I don't always have a solid plan when I start, and then sometimes I do, but they change. So I'm going to cut this down now, even with the edge of the envelope. And that adds another little interesting element to our project, as well as it covers up that texty stuff, and it kind of just, with using all Edith Holden stuff, it just kind of makes the whole thing kind of cohesive, I think. I'm going to ink this edge up, and the edges of this pocket. This paper, I'm not sure what kind of paper book page this is, but it really takes the ink nicely. It's kind of a heavy paper. It's not real, it's not rough, but it's not like real super smooth either. I don't know what kind of paper. Maybe it's straw paper? Is that what they call it? I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to have for my front. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it down. And I like, when I do this kind of a pocket, I like to put the bottom flap on the outside of the two side flaps so that that edge isn't going to catch anything going into the pocket. Like that. And just like that. It's a little crooked. Sometimes it's hard to do these things under the camera and get them straight. Alright, so here's what I have for this one. I have all Edith Holden on this one. I went ahead and used another strip of that text paper to cover up that post office stamping barcode, and I've got book page in the background for this window, and I'm leaving this one plain because I don't mind it. You know, you can't even see like the creases of the envelope. Well, I guess you can see like a fold right up there just barely, but I'm kind of happy with the way that background looks, so I'm going to leave it. Now the next step I'm going to do on these is to take them to my sewing machine. So for the ones that have the side pockets, I'm basically going to sew top and bottom because I want to leave both of these sides open. So that's what I'm going to do on that one, and this one. But on the one that has the top pockets, I'm basically going to start on one side and go down and cross the bottom and up the other side. So I'm going to do all that sewing and show you what I've got when I finish that up. Okay, so here they are. This one, I just did a straight stitching, and I tried to keep as close to the edge as I could. I didn't want to take away a lot of the real estate from this nice little pocket in the front. So I just did straight stitching top and bottom on that one and this one. And on this one, I really wished I hadn't messed this up and put my notches in the wrong, on the wrong side, but I did. I can always make another one. I'll just have to really do some decorating on the front of this one to make it interesting. And then this one I did some kind of fancy zigzag stitching top and bottom on this one as well. And then once you have these all constructed, you get to decorate them however you want. And so you can see how fast and how addicting and how fun this is to make these. They are pretty quick. I did all of this whole stack that I already had made previously, I did in one day. So, you know, they work up pretty quickly. Like I said, it's addicting, but I like to try and keep them fairly neutral so that they're, you know, available to stick in any journal that I'm working on. And I haven't done a whole lot of decorating of anything else on these yet, just in case I need to decorate them to coordinate with a particular journal. So that is all I have for today's video. This is a really fun project. I hope you've gotten some inspiration from it, and we'll try, you know, making some of these yourself if you're like me and you hoard all the envelopes, and then, you know, before you know it, you have 2 giant boxes full. This is something that you can do with them. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a blessed day.